Has your check engine light come on? That's the big question for the evening. And we're also going to be talking about a few other things that are kind of pretty big. Marie, do you want to tell them what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, we'll talk about some Bronco news, some recalls, and yeah, I think tonight it's a show to talk about that a lot.
It's a show you don't want to miss because a check engine light is pretty serious. It can be quite disastrous, and you need to take it seriously. And in this case, you'll want to know what's going on so you don't stress yourself out to death or to the death of the vehicle. So thank you so much, everyone, for making it here. We're a little later starting the show, a little technical difficulties now that YouTube has decided to always recommend that we do these lives vertically instead of horizontally, but we're able to...
It was hard to switch, but we found it.
Yes. So we're also going to be talking about recalls, of course, which ones are serious, which ones are not. We'll also be talking about the UAW strike. So that is a big one. So Maverick hybrids needing a recall, Ford Broncos getting investigated for bad engines, as well as really anything with a 2.7 liter engine. So I've got some insider information to share on that. Of course, I'm attached to the mechanics department at Ford dealerships. So I've got really an inside track on knowing what's really going on with that. How serious is it? We will even talk about the Super Duty recall that prevented me from delivering and will prevent some of you from receiving your Super Duties. So we'll talk all about that. So we've got a really good show for tonight. Of course, always continuing the UAW strike talk. CNN saying that things look like they're coming to a near end. And I don't agree with that one bit. We'll tell you why. So you're in for, well, a great show, and we look forward to hearing from you in the comments section. Please let us know what you think in regards to what we're talking about. So have you heard about, first of all, you can comment, have you heard about this check engine light on the Ford Maverick? Does it worry you? Are you worried about the 2.7 liter EcoBoost engines in the Ford F-150, as well as many other vehicles, including, of course, our beloved Ford Bronco? So tonight's all about, engine and mechanics. So let's dive right in, put the pedal to the metal, and talk about some metal here on Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. If you want to help us out, get the right information out, because we're not the type to just blow stories out of proportion. We get the real numbers, the real deal. And that's what you get when you're part of this community. You get the real deal. We're not just here to exaggerate things for views. It's pretty easy to make scandalous videos, and well, they say that how the expression goes, sex sells. Well, so does scandal. And on this channel, you don't get either of those. You don't get scandal and you don't get sex, obviously, unless Winston...
You just get poodles.
Yeah, unless Winston decides to get a little quirky in the back. But anyways, let's put the pedal to the metal, jump right in. Let's start with the Ford Maverick check engine, the main topic of the show tonight. But please do stay tuned and help get the word out. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of this truthful information, so you don't get fooled by different players' agenda in all this, because unfortunately in today's media, everyone seems to have an agenda beyond just getting views. So they're all about bringing out scandalous information, over exaggerating things, blowing things out of proportion, because they want your attention. That's what pays them, your attention time. So if you want to get the real information out, please hit thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with whatever other communities you're part of, with people that might have ordered one of these that because we need to get the right information out. I'm so unbelievably tired of big media just doing anything and everything they want to, one, feed the agenda of their owners, and two, to get clicks, even if what they're saying isn't truthful, or they deliberately leave out information, they omit information, they lie by omission, but they're still lying just for dollars. Well, here, Marie and I, we make our life outside of YouTube, so we don't have to be dirty for dollars. So No scandal here, except for when we really do have to expose something that's major. Obviously, we will. We're here to take care of everyone and keep everyone well informed. So before we get off to the Ford Bronco, let's talk about the Ford Maverick. So episode 1. Has your check engine light come on for your Ford Maverick? Now, check engine lights can often be a major source of concern, and they should be. I've sold BMWs, I've sold Audis, and in both, waiting for the reconnection, sorry, we cut out there. So I've sold before a BMW check engine light came on, they pulled over, no issues. We put about almost $5,000 of repairs and sensors. Everything was fine. Another BMW, they kept driving when their check engine light came on, and guess what? They ignored the check engine blew. BMWs are famous for having great engines, great mechanics, but their sensors, the electronics, when they go, if you ignore them, the check engine light comes out, you might blow an engine. Same thing with an Audi. I sold an Audi in both cases. We worked it all out for the consumer, for the buyer. We got them new engines in their vehicles and helped them out with that. In the case of the Audi, someone traded in basically a somewhat starting to get high in mileage motor and end up getting a brand new motor. So kind of ended up being a good deal for them because it cost them nothing and we lent them a vehicle in the meantime. So for the 2023 Ford Maverick, this is going to affect not just the this will affect the 23 Maverick because check engine lights might be coming on vehicles that were assembled at the plant between April 11th, 2023. So you can check your production date on your Maverick. It's written on your door sticker. Its birthday is written down. But make sure you weren't built between, or your Maverick wasn't born between April 11th, 2023 and August 23rd, 2023, because your check engine light might come on and you'll want to get this inspected because you have a time limit, pretty gracious time limit. We've got a lot of time to get this repaired for free. But what's going on here? That could concern a lot of people. Check engine, generally people always think something is wrong with my engine. And that's not true. Sometimes it's something outside of the engine that could lead to the engine exploding. I don't think this is going to lead to any engines exploding in any way whatsoever because the solution is simple. It's some reprogramming that the vehicle needs. So the dreaded light indicator could show up, and it's because of a diagnostic trouble code, DTC, and that gets thrown because of a leak. It detects a leak between the throttle body and the intake valves. And it looks like it's just a software issue, some reprogramming. So that makes me suspect there actually is no leak, because if there was a leak, that would have to do with, a gasket or a crack in the metal. But it's just a reprogramming, so this will get fixed. Ford will fix it for free. They're not just going to reset, with an OBD scanner. Even I, myself, in all my lack of talent, can erase an engine code. I can erase that little light easily. It takes me the time to walk out to the vehicle, find the plug it in. I can erase those engine codes. This isn't what Ford's going to be doing. So we'll get into details of exactly what they're going to be doing, but let's first talk about the impact. So from April 11th, 2023 to August 23rd, 2023, that's 18,063 units that could very well be affected. About 1,400 in Canada, and I'll get 1,463 units in Canada, but I'll get to the exact number in a moment. So overall, quite a few units. So in size, that seems drastic. And do expect, journalists will be talking about, recalls and whatnot this year. Ford will be number one when it comes to recalls. They're going to hit the 100, probably get to 100 recalls for the year. They're easily into the 70s. I actually think they're probably getting close to the 90s, and the year's not done. But Ford does things like this. This is one that obviously, instead of just dealing with the few people coming in and keeping all hush-hush, they could have, not said anything. Wait for people to come in. Oh, you have a check engine? We'll look into that. And then, an hour later say, sir, madam, it's resolved. We did a reprogramming, but they didn't keep it hush hush. It's a customer service, a customer satisfaction bulletin. So they publicize that they will, they'll check out your Maverick, and they'll get it just right. So something needs to be reprogrammed there, and you've got until September 28th, 2031, time-wise, or 80,000 miles to get this checked out and reprogrammed if you were built within those dates. Now, unfortunately,
That's a lot of time.
that's a lot of time, and no particular VINs were indicated as being troublesome, which makes me think that, could be an issue with any one of the 18,063 units built between those dates. That's still the total number of vehicles that get recalled by a manufacturer isn't something that bothers me. It's what is getting recalled, and the thing that bothers me the most is when things do not get recalled. It's companies that don't do customer satisfaction bulletins where they fix something for free. Lack of recalls, that bothers me. Now, Ford is being a little excessive with recalls these days, and they're going to be working. Jim Farley has already said that, many heads and tops at Ford have said quality is number one. They've got to get quality down. They want to bring recalls down, but that doesn't mean that they want to just ignore or make less recalls. It means they want to get it right from the start, which maybe that means spending a little more time with the product before you release it. Now, the Ford Bronco got a sneak release. It got a dealer took pictures in Las Vegas way back when they weren't supposed to, and it got everyone extremely excited. It kind of pushed forward and made things move faster on the vehicle. So maybe they'll be holding on to vehicles a little longer if they want to get those recalls down, because this isn't the type of recall that's caused from workers, UAW workers, not doing their job properly. So hopefully there won't be any, hatred or comments about, UAW workers don't deserve a raise, because look at all Ford's recalls. All these recalls aren't related to the workers. The workers are doing a great job, and I'm not wearing a hat, but my hat goes off to you guys and ladies. You're making a good product. We loved our Maverick, and we're just we really liked our Maverick, and we love our Bronco. I think that's a forever vehicle for Marie. The Bronco's just been incredible. So let's cover a little more information on this to really flesh out the story fully. So, of course, this is affecting, you may be wondering, what engine is this affecting? Do you have an EcoBoost? Okay, if you have an EcoBoost, you don't have to worry. Take a big breath. You're not affected. This is for the 2.5 liter hybrid. And even if you are built within those dates, well, obviously the ones built back in April, they've already been delivered. And that's where, a fantastic article written by Alexandra Purcell from Ford Authority. You can read that if you like to read your news. If you like to watch your news, well, stay right here. And either way, stay here. But she mentioned that she, seemed to kind of conclude, what was the conclusion here? A bit of a conclusion, figuring that many of these vehicles won't yet be delivered and are yet to be delivered. Now, obviously, I disagree with that, because all the ones in April, May, built in April, built in May, pretty much all the ones built in June, they have been delivered, because hybrid Mavericks are all customer orders, buyers' orders. So most of these have been delivered, but obviously the ones built in the month of August, some of those have yet to be delivered. So the ones built in August that have yet to be delivered, so a very small percentage of these Mavericks have yet to be delivered, they will get fixed before being given to customers. And that's actually an order from Ford, because Ford has given what's called a demonstration/delivery hold. So we have to do this before delivering them. So don't worry, if you haven't picked up your Maverick yet, this isn't going to be an issue for you. And if you're currently driving your Maverick and were built between those dates, so pretty much almost everyone built between those dates, you could very well be affected. Have it checked out. If your check engine light doesn't come on, have them check into it when you go for an oil change, because it's not going to add very much time to your appointment at the dealership. This is something that will be taken care of in under 1 hour. Ford is actually paying, so they've put aside money for dealers to cover 0.8 of an hour. So not a full hour. This takes under an hour to do. And it's certain 2.5 liter Duratec hybrid engine power control module, the PCM, needing reprogramming. So not the end of the world, folks. Now, the program terms, it's if you're Canadian, it's good until same dates, obviously, Canadian and American dates. There's no exchange rate on that, September 28th, 2031, but there is for kilometers versus miles. So you have 8 years in both countries, but 130,000 kilometers or 80,000 miles to have this checked out. If you don't have it checked out and your check engine comes on later and it's because of this, so far it's looking like you won't be covered. So it is important to do it at your next oil change. And if your dealer tries to say we don't have time for that, well, Ford's made it very clear to dealers that the priority are customers who already own the vehicle, and they have to prioritize them above their used Mavericks on their lots, as well as even their new unsold Mavericks on their lots. So customers, that would be stock, not someone's order. Someone's order will be prioritized. So don't worry about being put at the back burner and ignored. And if your dealer does do that, it's not Ford's issue, it's the dealer's issue, because Ford is making it very clear to dealers to prioritize customers over money, over the used vehicles that they want to make money on. So the reason for this program, according to Ford, straight from the bulletin, they say in the affected vehicles, diagnostic trouble code DTC P2282, air leak between throttle body and intake valves, may be inadvertently set, potentially causing the check engine light to illuminate during normal driving conditions while the vehicle is in motion. Now, that's Ford's wording, and I have to say, whoever wrote this, well, my hat goes off to you. Congratulations, you've used some, you're really trying to get the longer words in there, so inadvertently making it challenging for me to repeat this, but that's fine. So these were Mavericks, obviously built at the Hermosillo plant. I've said that wrong, my apologies. And in Canada, it's affecting 1,445 vehicles. So you can see that the huge majority of hybrids are being delivered in the United States. So of the 18,063 or 68, 1,445 in Canada. And Ford has made it unbelievably clear for dealers what they need to do. They've made it step by step. I've printed them out. There's roughly 14 steps, and Ford, like, this is idiot proof. So if you go to your dealer and your dealer is like, haven't heard about it, or we don't know yet how to do that procedure, they only need to know how to read. Open an email and read, or watch this show. So this is, let's see, the coding for this, what have they named this one here? We'll get to that in just a moment. But this is the program, Customer Satisfaction Program 23P18, with a recommended demonstration / delivery hold. It says recommended, but we can't deliver them unless we do the work. We could, and some dealers will. They'll try to cheat contract dates and say they delivered them before this date, and then maybe ignore their client about actually doing the work. But that's wrong. Make sure this gets done before you take delivery of your vehicle, so your new vehicle experience isn't ruined by that nasty little check engine light. So for those dealers that don't know what the heck they're doing, Ford spelt it out. There's a category in this bulletin, questions and assistance, with who to contact, phone number, and email. They're like, come on, reach out to us. We'll walk you through it. Ford as a manufacturer just wants dealers. The dealers just need to take baby steps. Ford will do all the heavy lifting and all the running around, and they'll take care of you. So if your dealer isn't taking care of you, please don't blame Ford, but please do put your comments, what you think about all of this, in the comment section. I want to hear from y'all. What do you think about this? Is this, so far from what we're discussing, is this worrying you? Are you concerned? Does this make you feel, less confident about your Ford Maverick? Do you think that the media is going to, at some point, spin this as, watch out, be wary of buying a Ford Maverick? I know when we got to talking about your Ford Bronco NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Association, investigation into the 2.7 liter, I already know that some media sources they had in the past, but they've already jumped in saying that, the Bronco isn't, has major issues and, isn't really built properly. I know that's not how Car Edge worded it, but Car Edge was kind of pointing to the fact like, hey, Bronco issues with the engine. And we'll get to talking about whether it really is an issue. How serious is it? I'd say for the Ford Maverick, this isn't serious at all. This check engine is not going to lead to a blown engine. This isn't a typical or, typical enough BMW event where a sensor goes and then if you ignore it, your engine blows. This seems to be, so far, and I'll correct it if it turns out to be something else, but so far this really just seems like a code popping up, causing the engine to go up, and the code shouldn't be popping up because there is no leak. If there was a leak, trust me, it would take more than an hour to fix if there is an air leak between the throttle body and the intake. So continuing on, this is activated in Oasis for dealers as of September 29th, 2023. The FSA VIN-less activation, while there is none, because it can potentially affect all the vehicles, because it's a programming issue that could cause the light to pop up. So they just need to reprogram something in that computing system. So stock vehicles, Ford sets it out straight. Correct all affected units in your new vehicle inventory before delivery. Very straight instructions. Some dealers will probably cheat. I've caught dealers selling vehicles last week, putting dates back to August in order to, putting dates of August 20th in order to avoid a recall on a Super Duty differential so that they can go ahead and deliver it. Some dealers are just nasty. So that was a costly mistake for me because, myself and my dealership, we refuse to cheat, lie, and steal for dollars. So we've got a good system. So you really need to shop. I think the moral of the story is you really need to shop your dealership because not all businesses function the same way. So rental vehicles, there will be no rental vehicle available because this is to be done in under an hour. So a lot of dealerships will have like a taxi service and they'll bring you off to somewhere. If you want to go shopping or be taken to work, they'll bring you there. So look into that. But this can be done at the same time as an oil change. And for dealerships, for claims and preparation, Ford puts it right out. So you just need to check your DLRC something or another, your emails coming in from Ford for program 23P18, and they'll walk you right through it. They even walk you through all the instructions. They walk you through how to claim it and how to repair it. So they tell you how to update the PCM software. And, Marie, you can attest to that here. I'll show you all. They've really given us step-by-step instructions. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Step 1 is connect a battery charger to the 12-volt battery. Step 2, log into Ford Diagnostic and Repair System. Step 3, click Read VIN from vehicle or manually enter the vehicle identification number. Step 4, select Toolbox tab. They're telling us how to work the laptops that we connect to the vehicles to do a reprogrammation. So really simple, nothing mechanical here, nothing to worry about, but media will spin this. So don't be fooled. The Ford Maverick is still a fantastic, affordable vehicle to be sought after. So everyone in the media seems to have their agenda. We even have one local media, you could say, conglomerate. So because we're in a French-speaking province, there's really only one channel, you could say, for vehicle information on television. And that one show everyone listens to and follows. It's because they're the only ones. People take it, as serious as they should take the Bible. And unfortunately, that one source just happens out of pure coincidence to get a lot of publicity dollars for Kia and Hyundai. And coincidentally, they say things like Kia and Hyundai are now more reliable and better than Toyota. You should buy a Kia and a Hyundai because they're better than a Toyota. Nobody beats. And like they just go on and on about how Kia and Hyundai are so incredible. And I'm not saying they're bad, but I am saying that they're also saying this when Kia and Hyundai, no media sources seem to want to cover how they're making crap engines. Total crap engines. The total amount, the percentage of vehicles that end up knocking, and then the percentage of those knocking engines that will end up blowing up, that will just completely have catastrophic engine failure, is far, far, far too high. But then you've got, our local media saying that Kia and Hyundai are better than Toyota, and it's their main recommendation. And they're always going on about how horrible Ford is because of recalls. And they got so much backlash at one point from F-150 customers, owners, that they started instead to say that F-150 it's the most sold truck. Everyone knows it's a good truck, except for the EcoBoost engines. And then it's like, hey, buddy, that's like 90% of our sales, 95% of the sales in our region, region or our part of the country. So how can you say that an F-150 is good, but then these EcoBoost engines are, just garbage? It doesn't make sense. It's almost all of them it's the huge majority of them that are on the road. So unfortunately, media, they have their agenda, they have their dollars, they have their paymaster, they are bought, owned, and paid for. But here we are independent and no paid promotions here. We are staying independent. So now that's what we've got to say about that. I wouldn't worry about the Ford Maverick. Things cost way too much. Salaries have followed inflation for the last 30, 40 years, but not the cost of living. This is why I defend so wholeheartedly the Ford Maverick, because Ford actually made a truck that can make you money or save you money. You can do jobs with this, or can save you money because you get your own jobs at home done instead of having to pay out for them. Very useful and extremely well priced when you look at the truck market, or even just the overall vehicle market, vehicle SUV market. And I feel like someone's got to defend this thing against, big media. People need an alternative that's inexpensive. You go back to the 1930s, and that's the height of the Depression. So 1930 was the height of the Great Depression. And the average salary was roughly $4,500. $4,500 to $4,800 was the average salary. That works out to $85,000 US today. Now, is the average salary $85,000 US? No. The Rockefellers paid a lot of money to push the feminist agenda forward, and which, great, it had some positive results, but one of the very negative results, and very positive for them, is that the other half of the population started working and getting taxed. So it worked out fantastically for them because, as big bankers, the original sources of finances, they made a lot of money. And the overall result is now it takes two people. The average salary now is just under $50,000. It takes two salaries to basically make that salary that was the average salary with inflation adjusted back to the 1930, the height of the Great Depression. So Rockefellers, applause to you for fooling us all. You funded a huge part of the women's feminist movement, which back then I wholeheartely agree with what they're fighting for: the right to vote and the right to work and the right to just be paid and be paid the same for the same work. All very noble causes, but coincidentally, that funding was probably most certainly so that they could tax another 50% of the population. So there are agendas, and I'm talking about this because another agenda that's going on these days is the EV push agenda. No one should be forced an EV, but that's where things are going. Things are going that governments, because it's just paying them far too much money to push this EV only agenda, and I think EVs need to be a choice. I think they're a fantastic option, but it should remain a choice. We should get to pick what we want to drive. That'll be later on in the show. Marie, you're up. So now for episode 2. Marie, what are you going to be talking about this evening?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the Ford EcoBoost engine failure investigation. So in several months, we saw a few inquiries, including a high voltage battery connector recall for the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and 2 recalls about the powertrain control module. And the rear axle mounting bolt for the Ford Explorer, Ford EcoBoost, EcoSport. Sorry, I'm not reading the right thing. So now the new engine issue touched more of the Bronco models equipped with the
2.7 liter V6 EcoBoost. Yeah, and recently we also had the recall, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the recall on the Super Duties, which caused a delivery hold as well.
Yeah, and in this investigation, they said that it's involving the Blue Oval plant, so it came from there. They estimate that it will touch 700,000.
708,000.
Thank you.
And if you stop moving the sheet, I'll be able to read that. So 708,837 examples. So those are 2.7 liters that are from 2021 to 2022. So this could affect, basically any vehicle that has the 2.7 liter. So the National Highway Traffic Safety Association is investigating. It's a potential of touching 708,000 vehicles. And I'll give you, the real deal once Marie fully explains what's going on with this. And if you do want to read up on this, a fantastic article written by Brett Foote over at Ford Authority did a great job writing an article on this. But I'm going to conclude from, real insider information so you don't get fooled. Because I actually had someone who's currently driving a Jeep who is horribly sad that they didn't buy a Bronco like ours. They got a green Jeep, Sergeant's Green Jeep Wrangler. And they're disappointed because they didn't get it because guess what? Big media told them that the 2.7 liter engine was complete hot garbage. And being that she's not, a huge auto enthusiast, she had to just believe the hearsay. So I'll let you fully flesh it out. Sorry.
That's perfect. And it will affect either the 2.7 liter V6 EcoBoost or the 3.0 liter V6 EcoBoost. Most on 2021-2022s for Bronco, Edge, Explorer, F-150, and the Lincoln Aviator and Nautilus. So what will happen with that thing? You could probably experience a loss of power without warning. And when it happens, you may also have trouble to restart due to catastrophic engine failure. So it's not a funny one.
Yeah, so far from the article, so if you go on Ford Authority regularly, fantastic media source. There'll be other media sources, though, that won't be so fantastic because they'll really emphasize on hey, this could be touching any of these 708,000 vehicles, could have their engine blow up. Some media sources are definitely going to be pushing home. They're going to try to hit a home run, taking a huge swing, and they're just going to try to hit a home run with this and get as many clicks, as much of your attention on their news article because of this. But we'll get to the real deal in just a moment.
And they found the cause. So at the Blue Oval, they said that's the valve that they made there. They were producing it using silichrome light technology. And they said that they switched part after that for silichrome 1, which is less susceptible to have this problem.
Despite the inferior name of silichrome 1 from silichrome, despite the inferior name, it's supposed to be a superior metal. So basically, when they were making silichrome the original valves. They're making them at very high temperatures, and now they know that later on, that process, under certain circumstances, can cause engine failure. So Ford has admitted to that. They haven't admitted to it. They came out saying it. They're very open about it.
But the good news in that, it's don't worry if it didn't happen yet to you. Maybe you'll be fine, because they said that the defective valve tend to fail early in the life of the engine. We talk about a few hundred or 1,000 miles. So
congratulations
most of you
to Brett.
will already know it.
Yeah. So congratulations to Brett Foote for adding that important note, because I can tell you as an insider. So here's the don't be fooled part. So please, before I get to the don't be fooled part, hit that thumbs up button. Share this with someone that needs to know this information, and please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any information, so that you don't get fooled. Now, Marie, I need your help to remind me to switch to the proper slide for this show. So let's get down to business, get some Bronco photos in here, and get to, the real deal behind this. So there's our Ford Bronco. We love it. My dealership has sold so many 3-liter EcoBoost V6s. We've sold so many 2.7 liters. And guess what? They've been absolutely fantastic engines. And, we're just one dealer, but we haven't had any of these valves blow up. And I can attest, I promise you, when Ford says that the damage gets done in the first few hundred or 1,000, not hundreds of thousands of miles, but 0 to 1,000 miles or 2,000 or 3,000 miles, that's absolutely true, because so far there's been roughly between 50 to 55 known cases of these valves malfunctioning, causing catastrophic engine failure, but they've all been under 10,000 miles, and the huge majority of them are right around the 3,000 to 3,500 mark. I'd say that's about where the majority is, because there's a few over 5,000 miles, very few, and a lot of them do really occur under 1,000 miles. So likely the problem will have already occurred. So we're not worried. We've already owned two 2.7 liter Broncos. They're off. They haven't had any issue. My dealership hasn't had any 2.7 liter engine valves or 3-liter engine valves go. At the end of the day, when all is said and done and the dust settles, of the 708,837 potential engines, vehicles, units that the NHTSA is looking into. So sorry, I always get the letters mixed up. NHTSA, yes, that they're investigating. I'm suspecting we're going to be well below 1,000 units that will have had this problem. And I actually think we're probably going to be under 100 or 150. So of all those units, it's an incredibly small problem. It happens right early on. Haven't had any of them happen over 10,000 miles as far as I know. And if that changes, I will obviously update you all. But remember, the engine warranty is for 5 years and 100,000 kilometers. So 60 or 65,000 miles in the United States, 100,000 kilometers or 5 years. And remember, it's always one or the other. If you do your full 60, 65,000 miles in the first year, 100,000 kilometers in the first year, well, you'll have used up the full warranty, because it's mileage or kilometers or the number of years. So very important to know, this truly is not going to be an issue. And obviously it's a huge issue if it happens to you. You're going to lose your vehicle for a couple of weeks, but you're going to drive away with a brand new engine that doesn't have this valve issue. I highly suspect this was just one small bad batch of valves created within a very short time period, and this is why it has affected so few vehicles. So that covers our Ford Bronco news that absolutely needed to be known, because you need to keep your eye on that. Thank you very much, Ridgeview, for encouraging people to hit the thumbs up button. So thank you very much. So what do you think? Do you have a Ford? If you're in the chat here, if you're watching this instead of watching it live, if you're watching this as a short little episode standing on its own, before walking away from this and watching another video, please drop your comments. Do you own a 2.7 liter? First of all, have you had an issue? Have you had any issues? And if you haven't owned a 2.7 liter engine from either a Bronco or an F-150, do you think this is as big of an issue as the media is going to let on to believe? The type of articles that are going to be written, the type of YouTube videos that are going to be made are going to discourage people from buying, a Ford Bronco or a Ford F-150, and they'll end up with what? A highly reliable Jeep Wrangler or Jeep Gladiator. I like those vehicles, but they're not highly reliable. The reliable doesn't end in this. It should be in the same sentence. We've known too many people to have transmission issues with those models. So let us know what you think. Please drop a comment and stay tuned. Watch one of our upcoming videos by just clicking over here when it gets suggested. If you're not watching this as a live, and if you are watching a live, well, stay tuned because we've got more great information coming right up. Marie, thank you for letting us know about that. I'm always thrilled to have you beside me and keeping me on track. So now we're getting into episode 3 of the live. So episode 3, this is kind of a big one. We'll get back to recalls, but episode 3, are electric vehicles, in a sense, kind of doomed? So, projects for an all-electric Bronco, will that get potentially canceled? Because, well, electric vehicles at Ford starting to be a little concerning. It's a little concerning over at GM, and it's a little concerning for Volkswagen as well, because Volkswagen is going to be deliberately slowing down production on one of their electric vehicle models. GM has been slowing down production. Ford is going to slow down production because they, quote, say there's less demand. So let's get into this story because it's kind of a big one, especially when you consider that we're being force-fed EVs. There is a particular time in the future that many countries have said you're going to only have the choice of buying an electric vehicle. So these, for many, throughout the world, many people, looks like they will be forced the purchase of an EV. And so far, it looks like this is a little chaotic because there's chaos in the EV market, being that demand is down. And it's down over at Porsche as well. The Porsche Taycan, they're selling such a huge reduction. Originally, they were selling around 46,000 units per year, and now they're going to be going below 30. Their numbers on that model keep going down and down every year. The initial excitement brought in a lot of buyers, but it's not steady. So let's get to this story. So Volkswagen, back in 2022, Volkswagen and Ford announced a partnership between the two, and this resulted in, them sharing a platform, sharing some technology. So we've got the Ford Explorer EV, all electric, out in Europe. I'd like to see that being offered here, and it will probably still be offered. But this is starting to throw some shade on all this. Maybe we won't see as many EVs as we would like. I certainly don't want to be forced any EVs, but VW's MEB platform is being, is needed by Ford. So Ford's next generation battery tech is, Ford's also waiting on Volkswagen's next generation battery tech, and this is why we still haven't received our crossover EV that Ford's been talking about for a few years. So Ford has been talking about an affordable EV crossover beyond, not the Explorer EV. So we have yet to get the Explorer EV, and we have yet to get the crossover. Now Ford is saying that's because they're still waiting on VW's battery technology, their next generation battery technology, according to Jim Farley. However, at the same time, Ford's also admitting that there is definite lower demand for EVs. So Ford has pushed back its goal of building 600,000 units biannually by 2024 to and then 2 million units by 2026. That's getting reduced. Ford is admitting that they're going to cut down production because of, well, planned production because of less demand. And I don't think that automakers should make no EVs. Let us know in the comments section, please. Do you think EVs should be just completely ignored by automakers? Should we have the choice? Or are you comfortable with possibly one day in, 10, 15 years being forced, if you want a new vehicle, being forced, only having electric vehicles as a solution, as the only thing that you can buy, the only vehicle option that you can buy? Because right now it looks like the market isn't that, like, it's cooled down. That's for sure. A lot of dealerships have these electric vehicles. We couldn't, a year ago, 2 years ago, we couldn't get a Ford F-150 Lightning on a yard available if our life depended on it. And now we have a lot of them available. And, in our region, electric vehicles are extremely popular. So these shouldn't be sitting around for quite as long as they are. So Volkswagen will temporarily pause production of the ID.3 at their plant in, I'm going to have trouble saying this, it's in Germany, the two plants, Zwickau and Dresden assembly plants, both in Germany, and they're going to be shutting these plants down. So the Dresden plant will be shut down from October 2nd to the 16th. Meanwhile, Zwickau plant will be down from October 2nd to October 13th. They're only doing this because demand has gone down for this model. And recently, Ford's CEO, Jim Farley, quote, said, "The near-term pace of ED adoption will be a little slower than expected, which is going to benefit early movers like Ford." Though he also acknowledged that weakened demand is also prompting major changes in the automaker's plan to ramp up production of those models as well. So I think we can say that maybe it's the plans to have a more affordable crossover all-electric SUV. I'm not going to say that they're canceled. I'm going to say that they're in jeopardy. So we've got and I think, a lot of why these EVs aren't selling as well is because of price. So I think it's going to be sad if we miss out on, I remember originally when they were talking about a crossover SUV being in the $30,000 range. I think now, realistically, with the price increases, we're talking about probably low 40s as a starting point. It'll be unfortunate, because I think the reason F-150s aren't selling is because people have gotten used to the idea that they're way too expensive. Now, I have to disagree with CarEdge today, and it's rare that I disagree with them, but I 100% disagree with Ray, which I almost always 100% agree with Ray from CarEdge. Usually Ray and Zach have opposing viewpoints, and I disagree with Zach and I agree with Ray. But today, surprisingly, I disagreed with Ray because he questioned, and not only just questioned, I think he made it kind of clear that his opinion is that these vehicles were overhyped. That, Ford went out and said that they had 200,000 orders of these vehicles, and that just wasn't true. Well, I can tell you, it was true. And I can tell you because there's 3,300 dealerships in existence, Ford dealerships, Canada and the US. And we had over 100, we had about 150 orders for F-150 Lightning. So, if we do that times, we're in a medium size, we're right down the middle, average medium-sized dealership in regards to sales. So simple math, if you don't mind grabbing the calculator, Marie, what does 3,300 times 150, and I believe we actually had 172 or 175, but what would be the math on that? If you don't, you can actually use, I've brought my phone here, they've got calculators on them.
Yeah, because mine is on the chat right now.
Yours is on the chat because you're watching that over. So if you want to just do the math as I talk away. So I'm confident that these numbers are going to indicate that Ford really did have 200,000 orders out in the system. But what I've experienced is that when you start to talk about price, people order these things, and then when you go to confirm their order, like, are you sure you're okay with the price? And they're like, yes. And we'd ask them. I always was very careful. Many sales consultants weren't. I'd say, are you sure you're okay with the autonomy? Realistically, in the winter, in the summer, If you go with an extended range battery of 515 kilometers, well, in the summer, you're going to get between about 430 to 515 kilometers of autonomy. And in the winter, you're going to lose 30 to 50% of that. And if you tow, you always lose roughly half. Can you live with that? And people told me, yes. They'd say, I know this better than you. I want to order this. Like, basically, shut up and take my money. Well, shut up and take my money has now turned into a good over 30% of the time, I hear, well, I'm not stupid. I've watched the videos. I know this isn't a good vehicle. Unfortunately, the media has portrayed this as, unfortunately, that's the news cycle. New model comes out. The media is saying it's the best thing ever. It's better than sliced bread. Trade your kids in for it. And then that excitement of, pay whatever amount of money for this, so that people go into a frenzy and pay $200,000 for the first few Hummer EVs that come out. And then after the excitement that they created is gone, then they poo-poo all over it and say, oh, it's hot garbage because of this. It's a steaming pile of crap because of this reason. And then they just nitpick it. And instead of just being realistic from the beginning and realistic at the end, which I'm sorry, but from day one, I got almost no views covering this. I bought one of these, have lost all sorts of money because I thought this would help, propel the channel. And anyways, from day one, I was out there telling the real deal. Ford had not told us the weight of this vehicle. Ford had just talked about the autonomy of the extended range battery. And I was there saying, well, look, expect to lose 30 to 50% in the winter. When towing, the vehicle should weigh, and I had approximated, I think I'd said between 6,500 to 7,000 pounds. And I said, with that kind of weight, do keep in mind, if you're towing the same amount of weight, you'll lose half your battery. And if it catches in the wind, you might lose 60 or even 65% of the overall battery autonomy. And I was saying that from day one, months, many months before any of that came out. But unfortunately, most people watch other media sources, got super excited about a product they shouldn't put a deposit on. And what happened? Ford just said the real deal. Oh, we have 200,000 units. This is orders, reservations. This is a huge success. And almost all the reservations, 100, actually, I'm pretty sure 100% of the reservations I put my hands on, they all got converted into confirmed orders. And then when they show up, 30% of the people basically tell me, oh, I'm not stupid. I've been watching the videos. I know everything about this vehicle. It's hot garbage. And then they don't want it anymore. I can understand when Ford increased the prices, I understood people dropping their orders. But then when Ford cut the prices back again and pretty much brought it back to the original pricing, I don't understand why this is a fantastic machine. I'm not in love with it because it's a soulless machine, but it's an incredible machine. People normally spend how much to have over 700 pound-feet of torque in a truck? They buy the Shelby F-150. They spend 200,000 Canadian dollars or more to get a new one. And they could go buy an XLT for 72,000 Canadian, or a Lariat 511, a fully loaded Lariat for 102,000 Canadian. But if you want to do the math here, we got 3,300 dealerships. My dealership had about 175 reservations. 577,500 reservations. So we're medium, and I'm not saying we're perfectly right in the middle. So when Ford says they had 200,000 reservations, I disagree with Ray saying that Ford made that number up, that they're just blowing hot steam and trying to overhype something and, lie to us. They didn't lie to us. I can easily say from the numbers, they must have easily received 200,000 reservations. I wouldn't be surprised if they received more in the range of 350,000 reservations. And of the 175 reservations, all of mine got confirmed. I don't think I lost. I think everyone confirmed their orders. Now losing about 30-40% of those orders once the vehicles actually get in, despite the price being reduced. So this isn't on Ford lying. This is just people being people and listening to big media, believing other people's agenda, because people, unfortunately, instead of working to tell the truth, often omit the truth or just say the information they believe will make them, popular, will have your attention on their show, on their media outlet, so that they get money. Because when it comes down to it, owning people's attention is the new revenue source. It's like going back 100 or 200 years and being the owner of iron ore or all the steel factories in a country. That made you very, very powerful. Well, today, what makes you very powerful and wealthy is being able to maintain people's attention. So on that, I'm not going to continue talking about this because I'm near rant level right now. So if I were to buy an F-150 all over again, I probably would get an XLT standard range battery. The standard range battery is more than enough battery. I unfortunately fell into the trap of I need a roof, a panoramic roof. I need more. I need the most autonomy. Living with an electric vehicle, heck, we drive it all week, and at the end of the week, I'm not even at half. I still have more than half of a tank of electricity, half a battery of electricity, and I charge it on a Friday night because I'm like, well, let's put it back to full. And I certainly don't have to charge it every night. The standard range battery is more than enough. And really, when we do have a long distance driving to do, and it's an issue if we want to go to Florida, but if we want to drive for 4 or 5 hours, what's the big deal if we stop for 12 minutes of charging?
12 minutes, it's perfect.
If we're on the road for 5,
we need to pee sometimes.
You need time to poop. If you're pee. Sorry, pee. You said pee. Well, you wouldn't even, with 12 minutes, for many people, you won't even have time to take care of a number 2. They probably won't even serve you your Starbucks coffee in time. You'll be rushing out, and you certainly don't have time to sit down and have a sit-down meal on a fast charger, 150 kilowatt charger, because you'll end up being at the high tariff, because if you go above 80% of a charge, it starts to cost you more. So there we go. Don't want to be forced EVs, but I also don't want misinformation about EVs. 2 different agendas. So sorry, Winston's jumping in. Now we're getting into, what is this, episode 4?
Yeah.
So that concludes. Please hit the thumbs up, folks. Support, share this information. If you're watching this as separate episodes, you can catch the next episode right over here to the right, where we'll continue to say the real deal, make sure none of you get fooled. That's what we're here for. So the next topic we're going to be covering is a bit of some important recall information to know, and also some important how to get free stuff for your vehicle information.
Interesting.
Yes, I certainly think so. I love free stuff. Free stuff is my favorite. So let's get the pedal to the metal on this show. Fords have been getting built with missing subs, missing speakers, in this case, missing steering wheel, a heating steering wheel. So what's really cool is the XLT F-150 Lightning standard range battery has a heated steering wheel. You have to go up to Lariat with your gas engine models. But if you have an F-150, look at your window sticker. Go back and look at your window sticker. If they didn't put it in your glove compartment when delivering your Ford truck, open your door. Note, or look at the windshield and note the 17 or 18 letters and number combination. That's called a VIN, a vehicle identification number. Write it down. Go Google Ford window sticker, and you'll get to a site where you can just throw in your VIN number, vehicle identification number, and you can see your window sticker. And if you've got a credit that's under $100, such as heated steering wheel and others, you're going to get, in most cases, you're going to get those parts back on your vehicle free of charge. So the heated steering wheel is coming back to the F-150s free of charge. We've already applied for ours, so this is recent, from the end of September. They're going to need to know whether your steering wheel is electronic adjusting, telescopic, so up and down, in and out. Is that done electronically, or is it hit a switch or a paddle? unlock a paddle so then you can move it around manually. They need to know that so that they know what part to order for you. So note that when you get to the dealership, note where you park, note your mileage. They're going to need to know this, or look at your Ford Pass for your mileage, but note how you adjust your steering wheel, because they need to order up the right part. Hopefully, really, they should ask you that question before you get to your appointment, so they've got the part stocked and ready to go. So, other news for the F-150s. Tremor, absolute best bargain. Get a Tremor, but for 2024, we can't get the Tremor yet. And I'd really say my advice is buy an STX if you're okay with having an amazing look, but less equipment, such as heated seats. But if you want the heated seats, and you want the keyless entry, and you want the push button, and you like having a big screen because you love having jealous neighbors. I don't like having jealous neighbors. My neighbors don't get jealous, but they come over and talk to me about how cool my vehicles are. And then we have a drink together and we hang out. And that's what I love. I love hanging out and chatting with my neighbors, throwing some dad jokes at each other. I got to learn some because we've got a daughter on the way. I got to note these dad jokes down. So I like having a big screen. So my huge recommendation is getting a Tremor, and that also applies for the F-250. Let's get to some F2. Look at these Tremors, beautiful vehicles. You know, you've got running boards like the Raptor, but instead of Raptor written on it, it says Ford. You've got off-road suspension. You got a bit of a lift on these. You've got the best interiors. The price point, well, not the best interiors. You know, it's not like platinum leather, but the interiors are fantastic. The price point, the value. This is the one to get. And that also goes for your Super Duty. Now I'm starting to almost wonder, am I in the right photos here? We also received a Dark Horse at the dealership, which I've got a lot of photos of. But so those photos I am not finding, but that's fine. The new 2024 Super Duty, I just want to point out, it is worth checking out. It's got a lot of look, very, very good looking vehicle. And I just wanted to show that to you. But back to this F-150 news. Lightning production is going to be reduced. So Ford is deliberately cutting back Lightning production. And that's because demand has been lower. So in Canada, here, we're being told that if it's not a customer order, you can kind of forget about it. And if it is a customer order, it might take a little longer to get. So 2023, my model year, F-150 Lightning, early balance out and resulting in stock order cancellations. But then even for the upcoming 2024s, you need to be a customer. Ford's not just going to willy-nilly throw all sorts of inventory at dealers. So that's what's going on with that. A little bit of EV chaos. Ford planned on making a lot of these electric vehicles. And I think it's a reminder that manufacturers really need to push back against the governments trying to force EVs. They need to push back. And it's not because I'm against the environment. I'm all for what makes us healthier. Today, my supper had an avocado and I had a huge amount of steak and some tomatoes. I'm careful with the types of shampoos and skin lotions I use. I don't put sunscreen on because there's cancer-causing chemicals. I don't put pesticides on my lawn. I add baking soda to all my fruits and vegetables because I want to avoid the pesticides. I get skin reactions when I come into contact with pesticides. So I try to do my best to keep my household safe and sane. Unfortunately, you can't avoid microplastics, but we bought an expensive water filtration system. But just to point out that governments are doing absolutely nothing when it comes to private jets. They're doing nothing when it comes to pesticides. They're doing nothing when it comes to sugar, which sugar does cause diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, obesity. Sugar is an absolute demon, and governments are totally okay with it. They go all out on tobacco, and sugar is actually a lot worse than tobacco, and it's been scientifically proven to be 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Nothing's being done for sugar. Nothing's being done for microplastics. Heck, we have this recycling program where a lot of our plastics end up getting burnt or picked up by other countries to be recycled. And all they do is drive out into the ocean and dump all the plastic in the ocean, leading to microplastics in from our food and microplastics all throughout our water system. Governments don't care about our environment. They don't care about our health. They care about their agenda, which pays them money. And the EV agenda is definitely paying them money. And if you believe our governments are truly out looking for our benefit, I've got a few slides that I found comical. Just, typical in the day of a politician. First of all, politicians are allowed to trade stocks, and politicians, well, not to pick on anyone, there's issues on both sides, but here's a stat I remember. Nancy Pelosi is worth $230 million. Makes a lot of sense that she's a career politician, making about roughly on average over all these years, under $200,000 over the lifetime of her career per year. So interesting. So a lot of politicians just coincidentally seem to sit on committees that make very important decisions, and they make these trade stocks, and then a decision comes out that they've made, and they sold or bought based on what they're going to decide. So politicians should not be allowed to own stocks. Huge conflict of interest. So at least 100 House members are invested in fossil fuels. So that's interesting. 59 are Republicans, 41 are Democrats, despite the fact that Democrats are forcing down our throats EVs, wanting to make these, and this is a worldwide agenda, force EVs as being the only possible choice. You've got New Jersey Senator Menendez indicted on bribery offenses, and that's because, they even found gold bars in his home. So he was bribed, not just, a car, not just bribed in cash, which they found a lot of cash in his home, but actual frickin' gold bars. That's cartoon levels of ridiculousness. That's, if you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, you probably should. Completely has a complete run and laughter on both politicians and what happens if we allow society to just be completely dumbed down. And the dumbing down of society definitely does happen if you have controlled media. And media, unfortunately, is controlled. We've seen it in the past. We're now recently seeing it with Russell Brand, who was, completely applauded for being a serial sexual, very, very promiscuous, and was very much idolized for being unbelievably promiscuous 10, 15 years ago. And then now that he's married, has a family, has kids, and speaks truth about, issues that we have in politics that affect our lives. Well, now that he's speaking truths that aren't meant to be spoken, well, this is when he gets in trouble for, inappropriate behavior. And he's not the only one. You actually have Rumble, and I'm going to start putting shows on Rumble because I think they deserve support. So if you could check us out on Rumble. Over on Rumble, the owner of Rumble was being threatened by a UK politician, essentially being told, you'll be arrested if you come to the UK if you do not comply with demonetizing YouTubers that we tell you to demonetize. So basically, if you talk against the agenda, they want these people demonetized, and they're even willing to try to ruin their lives and careers if they don't play the game, play the game. So I think if you look around, you can see how much society has changed in the last 20 years, or even if you look back 30 years. What used to be completely unacceptable and inappropriate, now you have people grinding on Satan during the VMA Awards, and that's supposed to be what we all look up to and what our kids are supposed to learn to be, normal. I'm sorry, but those aren't the type of values they used to push. It's certainly not the type of morals you learn on a farm. So there is an agenda at play. There's such an agenda at play that you can get gold bars given to you as bribes. I'm going to stop that rant because I could keep on going, but I'd love to know your comments. You can call me crazy, and that's fine, but try to keep your comments respectful. It's always good to, I think, share information, share knowledge, share ideas. So please, in the comments section, share that with us. Now, back to recall information. So actual news that is really specific to the automobile world. If you do have an F-250 or F-350 2023 built at the Kentucky truck plant from March 20th to the 23rd. So, sorry, March 20th, 2023 through August 21st, 2023, there's going to be a recall, and it's on your rear axle shaft, and it's going to prevent you from taking possession of your vehicle. So this is the axle shaft with the 10.5 inch axle shaft. It's a left axle shaft failure at flange. So this can be serious. This can cause damage. And of course, I don't have my 250 photo up. So I'm going to get this 250 photo up. I can figure this out. I'm not that bad here with technology. We're just on the wrong date. So that's what happened with that. And for one reason or another, it's looking like it did not load up. So no Super Duty photo for us. Let's just go back to the show here.
Technical problem.
A little technical problem. Sorry about that, folks. So let's get a nice Bronco in the background, because I can look at one of those all day. You love looking at that, so make the wife happy. So this isn't affecting all of the F-250s and 350s built between March 20th, 2023 and August 21st, 2023. But what it does is it affects those that have the 10.5 inch axle shaft. So you need to get it checked out. They'll open it up, and it's actually numbered. If it's number 1, I believe, it's definitely an issue. But if you're number 3, if there's in part of the code, there's a number 3, you're safe. So your technicians will know how to do it. Ford has described it really, really clearly. And I'll show you. They've given us a photo. So even if you can't read, your dealership cannot say, once the solution's been found, they can't say, oh, well, we can't do this for you. We're not sure. We don't know how. It's all listed out with a photo. And they've even once you do open it up, the axle shaft, they're saying pin stamp first digit. So they're saying locate the pin stamp on the left-hand rear axle flange. Was the pin stamp missing? Yes, take pictures of the axle flange and send them to, and they tell you where to send it. And they're saying if the first digit on the pin stamp is a 1 or a 2, well, then it does not pass inspection. So they're going to have an issue here. So Ford also, again, very clear. Dealers can't get away saying, oh, we don't know what to do. Ford hasn't come out with anything. We know exactly what to do. We can check it. If it's a 1 or a 2 on the first digit, fail. You're going to need this is mechanical. You're going to need a new mechanical piece. So your truck's going to be gone for a while. This is dangerous. You don't want an axle shaft breaking while you're driving. This will make a Super Duty 250 or 350 undeliverable. Now, this will be resolved, obviously, very quickly, because if it starts with a 3, it's a good axle shaft. So it's just a matter of time before they get an axle shaft with the 3 as the first digit, and they can deliver you your vehicle. Now, for the UAW, that ends episode 5. 4. No, that ends episode 5 because we were talking about the recall. So good luck finding where we started episode 5, but it's as soon as we started talking about the axle. So please let us know, is your Super Duty affected? How much does this worry you? I'm not excessively worried because the solution has already been found. They know that they need a different axle shaft. Obviously, one that was built after that date. If you're now going to be, or before, if you're now going to be waiting to get an axle shaft replaced. So the Super Duty, it's not catastrophic, but it could be if you keep driving. So you need to get this checked out if you're built between those dates. So folks, do take this one seriously. I often say, oh, this recall is not serious. This is a joke. Media is going to blow this out of proportion. Well, this isn't a joke. If you've got a one or a two, this could be definitely an issue. You don't want to be driving and have your axle shaft break. Now, let's see. Do they talk about it being, I think they just said that it could cause your vehicle all of a sudden to, not move forward or back. But I wouldn't feel safe with that. And I would definitely park it if I have it verified right away, and then I'm sure they're gonna want to park it and get it replaced. So they're gonna jump on that ASAP. Now for the UAW news. So that's what we're going to be doing here in episode 6, because there are some developments, and they're not positive developments, despite CNN seeming to think that this is near done. So let's get the CNN article up here. UAW strike, CNN. Let's see what they've got to say about what is going on. So they see this as ending soon, and that's just not the case. I don't see this ending soon, and of course that's my personal opinion. But they're saying here anyways, I don't think this is going to end soon. Both sides the manufacturers have way too much inventory so that they can handle having a strike for a while. And the UAW has a little over $800 million. If they would have put every single worker on strike, all 150,000 workers, they would have been able to maintain roughly 11 weeks of strike. But now, because they're only taking out not all their workers, they were at 12,000, they've added another 7,000, so we're at about 19,000 auto workers right now, roughly. It's costing them much less. And Ford and GM have had to lay off workers, because when you've got one plant closed, if they make parts for another plant or a few other plants, you have to start laying off people if they don't have any parts to work with. So this isn't going that well. So let's see what the UAW, CNN, great job at covering quotations. I don't agree with their conclusion that this is almost done, because I'd say that they're definitely, when you look over at Ford Authority, there's an interesting article with, basically, it looks like Ford CEO Jim Farley and UAW President Sean Fain, they're at it. They're at it, and we'll get to what's being said. But basically, Ford's Chicago assembly plant that makes the Explorer and Lincoln Aviator SUVs, that has just been closed down as of Friday at noon. And GM's Lansing Delta Township assembly plant in Michigan, which makes the Chevrolet Traverse and Buick Enclave SUV, those are shut down. So that's an additional 7,000 members joining the picket line. So now we've got a total of 25,000 of the 150,000 employees striking. They're saying that there were some last-minute negotiations at Stellantis, and they also found that Stellantis, things are moving forward a little better. They had said that things were going better with Ford, but not so much now, I'd say. Let us know in the comments how you think this UAW strike is going. Do you think this is going to be a short strike? Do you think this is going to be a long strike? But we've got here Fain saying, we knew it was unlikely this was going to be quick. So that's what Fain was saying about the strike's duration on a live streamed update. Does say we're excited about this momentum at Stellantis and hope it continues. So Stellantis was not penalized last Friday, only Ford and GM. But do remember that last week, that we're now into week 3, in week 2, parts distribution affecting GM and Stellantis. They hit the parts distribution and put some people on strike from the parts distribution for GM and Stellantis, which means getting your vehicle repaired or a recall done could definitely be an issue. Ernest, yeah, great point, RQBO. Thank you very much for making it. So keep the comments coming based on what you think. So GM criticized the expansion of the strike. So GM said, calling more strikes is just for the headlines, not real progress. Of course, they don't want more things closed. It puts more pressure on them to give in to the demands. So that was said from Gerald Johnson, GM's Executive Vice President of Global Manufacturing. Went on to say the number of people negatively impacted by these strikes is growing and includes our customers who buy and love the products we build. Our current record proposal that is on the table offers historic wage increases and job security while not jeopardizing our future. We're here to reach an agreement so we can all get back to work, and that remains our 100% focus. So, yeah, I don't see this really ending. What do you think, Marie? Let me know what you think. You know, last week they did close down 38 parts and distribution centers operating in 20 states. So GM and Stellantis got a huge hit last week when it comes to customer satisfaction, because if you can't get your part for your broken vehicle, you're not going to be a happy camper. And that's...
Yeah, it's not affecting only new vehicles, it's the parts too. So that could be a problem, a bigger problem.
So right now, the three companies are on record, each offering the union an immediate raise of at least 10% for the 145,000 UAW workers. Now, I'm not sure if CNN got this misquoted. I believe it was 20%, and I do believe there are 150,000 UAW workers. Let's just call that semantics, because when the math comes down to it, I think a lot of this boils down to you've got two very much competing viewpoints. You've got Sean Fain, who's talking, you know, from a very ideological standpoint of what's fair. You've got President Biden talking about what's fair. President Biden, to paraphrase, was saying that, you know, workers, UAW workers, made huge concessions back in 2008, and that these manufacturers have been making billions of dollars and they can afford to pay these workers more, and that these workers deserve more. And I don't disagree with with that statement. However, I do believe that that's still going based on ideology. That's just talk that cranks up either side. Just like if Jim Farley is talking, and let's go see what Jim Farley had to say, because it's pretty interesting. I've got the notes here, because Jim Farley and Sean Fain seem to be at it when really this should just be about numbers. They really just need to go over the numbers. For me, if you think about it, you've got 150,000 workers. And Marie, if you don't mind cracking out the calculator, I think this is how negotiations need to be conducted. Not about, you know, what's ideologically right, what's fair, or what's earned or deserved. It needs to be based on, can the company afford it? And if you have 150,000 workers, so if you take 20, let's say everyone were to make an extra $20 an hour. So right now, unfortunately, you've got part-time workers, temp workers only making $17 to $19 an hour, and that's horrible. That's no way to live. You can't live on that. But whether that's fair or not, let's take it out of the conversation. You've got unionized workers making, a lot of them, let's say, making $28 an hour. That's also very difficult to work on. Ford originally wanted to pay workers well enough. Henry Ford was proud to say that my workers can afford to buy the product that they build. And that's not being said anymore. And it's funny because CarEdge, Ray pointed out that the beginning of his factory tour in Michigan was Ford talking about how it was Henry Ford's vision to produce a vehicle that the workers themselves could afford. But if everyone gets a 20, let's find out what it would cost for everyone to get a $20 an hour raise. Whether you're temp or full-time, $20. So let's say they demanded to work 32.5 hours per week. So 32.5 times 20, you've got $650 more per week times 52 weeks. 33,800 now times the number of workers, 150,000 UAW workers. And then what do we get? 5, 0, and another 0.
Okay, sorry. I was missing the number.
So you end up with $5.7 billion for all three manufacturers, with GM making $7 billion Are you going to tell me last year alone, GM made $7 billion in profit after spending on EVs and, after spending on all the expanded projects caused by this guy right here, forced expanded projects on EVs? You're telling me that the companies each can't afford roughly 1.6 or $1.7 billion more per year? EV production, interestingly enough, labor costs for EV production is 5% of the overall cost. And I know there's been talk about, Ford loses money every single EV they sell. And it's true, Ford loses $32,000 every time they sell an EV. One day forced by these guys here around the world. All the ones following the agenda to force electric vehicles on us with the idea that it somehow saves the environment. Well, we're actually in some of the historical lower ends of CO2 production on the planet because we're coming out of an ice age. We're at CO2 in the atmosphere is 0.04% of the atmosphere. We were once at 0.03, that's the all-time low. At 0.02, vegetation does not survive. We need CO2 to feed plants. Being at 0.04 isn't a huge issue. There's all sorts of other environmental issues which are horrific for our health. And there's nothing being done about it. There's very little being done about major sources of CO2, such as third world countries and second world countries running two-stroke engines all over the place. Horrible for CO2 and just other pollutants, actual serious pollutants that affect people's health. Private jets. There's so much. They're just focusing on the vehicles like it's the end-all, be-all. And interestingly enough, if we go, and this is a very short rant because it's written out and planned, but I just want to do a little history here. In the 1960s, governments, the global agenda, governments around the world in the 1960s told everyone that oil was going to be gone in 10 years. How true did that turn out? And we'll talk about what this led to. Think about it for a second. In the 1970s, governments told citizens that there was an ice age coming in 10 years. In the 1980s, citizens globally were told that acid rain would destroy all the crops. In the 1990s, governments told citizens that the ozone layer would be gone in 10 years. Remember how the ozone layer was going to disappear and we're going towards extinction? And in the 2000s, governments told citizens that ice caps would be melted in 10 years. Now, for the ozone layer, yes, they took out a dangerous chemical out of, hairsprays and other aerosols. So that's one that maybe something actually scientifically was done to actually help. But in all those throughout the decades, there was always generally some steaming hot pile of lies being sold to all of us. And they were sold on this because we traded some freedoms, tax dollars, because this is important. Because the money we have left over for our families, either to spend on vacations, spend on our family's education, or to invest to produce more. That's what freedom is. Freedom is being able to have choices. And without choices, you have no freedom. This is why I'm so against the forced introduction of electric vehicles. It's taking choice away from people without a legitimate reason. CO2 production just from vehicles is not a serious end-all, be-all extinction event. Just like everything else mentioned throughout the decades, that those were all instances to make sure that they introduced all sorts of taxes on fuel because we were running out of it. In 10 years, back in the 1960s, oil was going to run out in 10 years. So they taxed the crap out of it. That meant less money for us as families, less choices, less liberty, less freedom. And I'm tired of all of us getting fooled into trading for, safety. If we go back to, the Nazi Party was also pro-environment and was in the process of saving the environment. I don't like being lied to so that people can be happy to give up their freedoms for safety. I can take care of my own safety. I just don't want a government that works against my benefits, against what's actually good for me. And freedom and choice is what's good for me. Let people sort themselves out. We don't need an all-controlling, all-seeing, all-regulating, and all-punishing government to all dissenters. And when you've got a UK politician writing to YouTube demanding that someone gets demonetized without a proper judicial system going through, when you see media all, in the same day, all telling the same story in the same way, and you actually see media they have, major media sources have formed groups to agree to be against certain narratives, to be against, a free narrative. So Rumble, very interesting. I'm going over to Rumble. I'm going to be starting to put videos on Rumble because meanwhile, while the CEO, the owner of Rumble, the CEO was told to demonetize certain people and did not. He was told he'd be arrested if he goes into the UK. And he's also been he's been removed. Rumble has been removed from France because Rumble allows Russian news on Rumble. And people who want to express their viewpoint on Rumble about what's going on in Ukraine or what's going on in Russia, the Russian viewpoint. It's always good to have two sides of the story to be able to make an informed decision. Well, media these days has a huge pressure from certain sources to make sure there's only one side of the agenda that gets told. Just like when it comes to CO2, there's only one side of the agenda. So while Biden is saying, hey, you go UAW workers, fair, and he's talking about fairness and rights. Well, a lot of the reason Ford and GM and Stellantis are saying we can't afford to give originally a 46% pay increase, which now I believe the UAW has said, we're looking to get 30%. They're willing to make a deal at 30% on that point. Well, manufacturers have yet to say they're willing to do more than 20% because there's an agenda requiring billions of dollars going towards EV. And I can't believe that politicians aren't getting any benefit from this because politicians, unfortunately, sometimes comically get caught with gold bars that were given to them as a bribe. Cartoon levels of ridiculousness, but actual fact. That's why it's important. So clearly there's a theme going on here, and there's a high possibility the agenda is going to continue unless, we start talking about it and start saying we're not willing to accept that. So I'll get off this, but I just do want to remind everyone that 88% of the S&P is owned. 88% of the companies on the S&P are owned by Vanguard, BlackRock, and one other company. And I noted them. It's State Street. So those three companies own 88% of the companies on the S&P. So when they have an agenda that they want to push, they get it done. So very, very odd. I worry about this because it's about car ownership. This is a car ownership topic because electric vehicles will push the middle class out from owning vehicles. And there is the agenda. The agenda is that Klaus Schwab has actually publicly said, so he's the CEO of BlackRock, and he's publicly said that under the Great Reset, you'll own nothing and you will be happy. So it's not coincidental that vehicles are becoming more expensive. They're becoming more expensive because so much money needs to get poured into the EV. So the gas vehicle prices have to increase, and governments have, these carbon taxes where you're not, basically if you're not producing almost only electric vehicles, if you're selling gasoline vehicles and you don't meet that, 50 mile per gallon general fleet average, for example, well, you get taxed. You pay a fine to the government. And if you don't pay a fine to the government, you get a deal. You have to give less money to Tesla to buy carbon credits. So a whole scheme, a whole bunch of crap, but it's causing people aren't jumping on these EVs. Volkswagen's having to cut their EV production, and Ford is having to cut their EV production because as consumers, some people love EVs and it's great. We love our EV, but not everyone's going to be jumping on this bandwagon. So another reason why the strike is looking like it's going to be long. Let's go over to Ford Authority. Both sides have plenty of money. Well, UAW has a lot of money to get what they feel they deserve and should get. And the big companies have enough inventory. And Jim Farley and Sean Fain are kind of at a war of words with each other. So let's check that out. You can always read up about it on Ford Authority for the direct quotes. So Ford rival GM also saying that UAW is acting in bad faith because Ford publicly came out saying that the UAW was acting in bad faith. There's a bit of a war of words going on now. So basically Jim Farley saying that Sean Fain, president of the UAW, is spending too much time with basically spending as much time on TV as a State Farm representative. And, you know, the UAW president saying that Jim Farley isn't at the meetings as he should be. So they're at it. This doesn't look... Things are getting ugly, I'd say. And then Ford saying that, you know, things are stalled about in regards to future EV plants, you know, jobs being taken away because of the push towards EVs. And Sean Fain saying, no, it's not about that. It's about other topics that aren't being met. So if you want to read all the points, head over to Ford Authority because we want to keep this show a little quicker tonight. But the rhetoric is definitely looking at like this is, you know, we're at week 3 and I'd say this looks like it's 30% done. So I think we're going to be looking at a good 9 to 12 week strike, but maybe I'm horribly wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case, folks. So please leave your comments. Let us know what you think about the strike. Do you think this is going to be a short strike? Do you think this is going to be a long strike? If it's a long strike, guess what? Inventories will go down. Prices will go up. Not necessarily the MSRP prices, so the advertised price, but definitely we'll see maybe higher interest rates, definitely less rebates. So if inventory goes down, it's all going to cost us more to have our new vehicles. So I think that there's money to give everyone $20 an hour or more, and I think that they just need to sit down and say, you know what, the workers we can afford to give them $20 an hour, and the manufacturers need to get together and fight against this forced EV push, which is causing them to have record expenses. Ford was looking originally at losing $3.5 billion on EVs. That doesn't mean they're at an overall loss for their whole entire operations, but on the EV side of things, they're going to lose $3.5 billion, and it's now being revised at $4.5 billion. If they continue to have high production, maybe that could end up 2023 costing them $5 billion of losses because of EVs. But they've cut down production, but often they miss their mark. So I think Ford's going to lose a good, easy $4.5 billion because of EVs. This is why manufacturers need to tell governments to piss off and not force EVs. I think we should have the choice. I think Ford is making an incredible EV. If you want 700 pound-feet, over 700 pound-feet of torque out of an F-150, you're spending $200,000 on a Shelby. But instead, you could just spend 73,000 Canadian getting an XLT standard range battery Lightning. Our Lightning does 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. It's worth the money, folks, but we shouldn't be forced it. So check out the quotes if you don't believe me about this being a long strike. Let me know why you think maybe this is going to be a short strike, or why it could be a long strike. Let me know what you think is a fair settlement. Let us know. Marie, I'm going to let you sign out for the show.
Yeah, so please like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Comment finisher if you made it this far.